Roshael Hanna is our speaker, and we continue to get asked by people, for assistance on resume and what about LinkedIn and
Mhm.
you know uh, interviewing questions, etc. And Rochelle Hanna is an expert in that area, and she's going to talk to us about unlocking our professional brand and mastering LinkedIn, which I think we can all use, right? She is a certified professional resume writer and LinkedIn branding strategist and has done this for a year. She has a master's in psychology counseling, which probably helps her to get in the minds of those people that she's helping. And she is really focused on our goal of getting us noticed. And so, Rochelle, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sounds good. Let me get presentation. So this morning, when we're talking about mastering your LinkedIn and your and the connection to the resume, what I'm hoping the takeaway is today, I'm hoping that you all are going to have some tools and tips so that you can go home today, or you can go back to your office or go to your desk, and you can actually do some rebranding yourself. I've been in the industry for almost 5 years, and when I first started, I didn't know the power of LinkedIn, and most people don't know the power of LinkedIn. But hopefully today I'm going to change that for you, and I am going to show you that LinkedIn is your marketplace, it's your digital footprint, it's your brand, and it's a time for you to take charge of your LinkedIn profile. A few of the things that we are going to speak about today are your mastering the LinkedIn, the unlocking your profile, the best practices, and the connection between the LinkedIn and your resume. So a little bit about me. I've been doing this almost 5 years, and the purpose of me telling you my story, that I didn't have my audience well targeted. I want you to be able to target your audience so that when you're branding your LinkedIn profile, you're making sure you're reaching out to all of your target audience. So that's the message for knowing your audience. And I guess the real question here today is, do you know your real audience? And if you don't, you need to know your real audience. When someone's coming for services, they usually say, I'm going after the project manager role, or I'm going after the CEO role, and they know exactly where they're going. For those few clients who don't know where they're going, I can't tell their story well on LinkedIn, and I can't tell their story well on their resume. But so we have to know where we're going. And there are two differences. LinkedIn is not your resume, and your resume is not your LinkedIn. A few minutes about your LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn is your personality and your history. So especially the About section, we're going to talk a little bit about your personality and your history. And of course, your experience section has your history in it, but it's not your resume. I've had a lot of people try to put their whole resume into the About section, or they've actually uploaded their resume. We don't really suggest that, because the hiring team will think they know you before they even want to reach out to you, and they may determine you're not the candidate for them when they just look at your full resume on your LinkedIn. And for your resume has its own power. It's your history, your full history, that's relevant to the target you're going to. And the story I like to tell here is I had a client who had a JD, so he was an attorney. He went to law school, he was an attorney. He never practiced law, but he wanted to put it on his resume, even though it had nothing to do with his resume. And the same thing with LinkedIn. So your resume is your history, your relevant history, but under the umbrella of the target role you're going after. So the message here for all of us today is your LinkedIn is not your resume and your resume is not your LinkedIn. And then a lot of people will come along. Most everybody knows that they need a resume. Not everybody knows they need a LinkedIn. But today in our conversation, we're really chatting about the power of LinkedIn, and you absolutely do need LinkedIn. A lot of people have said to me that they actually get found when they're on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is not something that you might want to have. LinkedIn is something that you should have. Bottom line for LinkedIn, and we talked about this, I believe, last week too. LinkedIn, the big power of LinkedIn is it's a place for you to build your brand. It's a place for you to grow your relationships. And it's a place for you to expand your opportunities. But most people don't know how to market themselves on LinkedIn. And as we spoke earlier this morning, a lot of people know they do a great job and they can succeed at work, but they don't know how to market themselves or how to brag on themselves. And I think so in all the years I've been doing this, hundreds and hundreds of clients, perhaps 3 or 4 have said, you're overselling me. I don't want to say that much. And I said, but this is your marketing piece. This is your first impression. This is them getting to know you, get them getting to like you, and for them wanting to reach out to you to give you an interview. So you really do want to have your LinkedIn brand match your resume. You might be wondering why I have a Home Depot picture here. And I would say that everybody on our call today, everybody has probably been to Home Depot or their local store that's like Home Depot. So the people at the Home Depot, they're all dressed in shorts or jeans or t-shirts. And that's great for Home Depot. But going to an interview, you want to be interview ready. And most people will go to an interview and they're going to be dressed like this or even more professionally. So I want you to know you need to own your brand when you're going to the interview. But I'm talking the same way about your LinkedIn profile and your resume. Before you go to the interview, your interview preparation and your interview marketing tools, that's your LinkedIn and your resume, and you want them to be professional too. You're not going to go in your Saturday clothes to the interview. So we don't want your LinkedIn and your resume to look like you're shopping at Home Depot on the Saturday. Again, your LinkedIn banner and your headline. Anytime anybody searches for you, when you're looking for somebody to get services, you're going to search their name, and every time their name comes up, you're going to see their headline. So the headline and their name and their photo are going to pop up first, and then when you click on their profile, you're going to see their banner. You're going to see their banner and their headline and their photo. That's the first impression that people see when they see your LinkedIn profile. And you want to make it count. You want to make it authentic. You want to make it real. Here's an example. Here's an example of Sally. I don't know Sally. I picked somebody I don't know, and she has no branding. And then I used my branding because of confidentiality. I didn't put up a client's, but I would walk through Sally for a second. And I apologize if your profile looks like this, but most people's profile looks like Sally's because they don't know how important the banner and the headline and the photo are. So Sally has no banner. Sally's photo has no background to it, and her head is being a little bit cut off. And then Sally's description for who she is kind of vanilla. So go over here. These are my brand colors, but also if you look at Dell and LinkedIn and Facebook and a lot of other big brands, they're going to be using blue. Blue there's color psychology behind blue. So blue is important. And I tell them what I'm going to do. I revamp resumes. I rebrand your LinkedIn. and I help you elevate your career or I help you elevate your career or your business. So if you're a job seeker, I help you elevate your career, accelerate your career, get job interviews. And so I'm telling them exactly what I'm going to do for them. And this headline always goes with you no matter where you go. And if you look at Sally's, she has the stars like I do. I often put stars or lines or something to differentiate it so it doesn't look like a run-on sentence. Also, Sally had her city like a suburb of a major city. If you look at my city, it's the metropolitan area that I live in, Minneapolis and St. Paul. So it gives it a bigger footprint and it makes you look like you are more experienced or more credible, or you have a stronger presence. The other thing about Sally, this is a logo for Sally's business because she didn't put a logo on her business page. We suggest you put a logo on your business page so the logo pops up and makes everything look more professional. Again, no branding. And hopefully today when you leave, you will be able to take, if you have something like this, you'll be able to come to something like this. The headline format is pretty simple. This is what people usually have. They have no value proposition and they have buzzwords and overused words. But the simple headline format for you, it's actually your role title and a specific role title, either the one you currently have or the one you're targeting, and then 2 or 3 superpowers, and then a value proposition. Because you have to think like your audience, and your audience is asking, what's in it for me? So simple format for your headline, and then your headline will get more results. Here's some examples. Here's the headline right here, a marketing person. This is kind of vanilla. It's not specific. It's words that are kind of generic. Here is the one that we suggest. Same person, but you're telling them strong title, strong superpowers, and then the value proposition. And I actually kept these short for the presentation, but LinkedIn allows 220 characters, so you can get quite a bit in there. So this is one example. Here's another example. Here's the example that doesn't work so well. Here's the example, same guy, same person, but you can see the value and the credibility of the person on this example. Another example, same thing, project leader. Project leader is a little bit generic. Project manager has a little more credibility, and then the details of that role. Most of the time when somebody comes to me, they don't really want a LinkedIn profile and they really don't want a resume. They want interviews. So the purpose of LinkedIn is to get found, to get noticed, and to get interviews. And that's why I've got the formula for you, and I'll be giving that to you in a handout. The other thing is I have a background in real estate, and I like to say that your LinkedIn About section is prime real estate. I've had several clients reach back to me after they've gotten interviews, and they've told me that the hiring team has told them that they know them, they feel like they know them and like them before they even meet them. Before they get the interview, something about the About section pulls out their personality, and the people feel as if they already know you. So it really does get you interviews when you put yourself forward on your About section. Again, the format for the About section, it's your personal and professional story, it's your personality, it's what you like to do on your time off, and it's the value you bring to them. And it's kind of like your brag book. So it's a time for you to brag about yourself, but not in a real overt way. It's a way to tell them who you are without shouting at them of who you are. Again, your about section is your story, your personality, and the value you bring. This is a section I'm not going to go over right now, but this part right here, it's an introduction to talk about people who influenced him, people, how he got started. Here's a little bit about entering his career field. And then here's a little bit about him outside of work. This particular client, he did a lot of volunteer work. Most of the time, the volunteer work is a little bit, it's not necessary in the about section, but his about section, he was such a volunteer in the community. We did that. And your about section is about, it could be about 50-50 personality, your career, how you got started, and then some career highlights, and then some more information about the career itself. But this is not a place to put your resume and all the facts about you. This is a place where you're the prime real estate, where you're going to tell them who you are so they get to know you and like you before they meet you. Again, pretty much most of my colleagues and I have agreed that if you're going to have someone know you and like you, they have to hear your story. So all along the way, whether it's your resume or your profile, you're going to tell them your stories. Stories build connections. Stories are something you can remember. I'll give you an example of many years ago, one of the pastors I had, he gave his message. I can't remember his message. I can't remember many of the messages, but I do remember this one story. He was reluctant to be a pastor. So he said there were skid marks across America that he didn't want to be a pastor. And it took him a few years before he got there. And then he obviously was settled there for 50 plus years or 40, 50 plus years. But that story, I remember that story if I remember nothing else about that message or any of the other messages. So the trick here, or the teaching here, is we want to learn to tell our story and to tell our story well. And then I have another example of Caitlin was a client. She came along and she wanted to be a customer success manager. I created the resume and the profile for customer success manager. But about 2 months later, she said, well, she was just finishing her education degree and she wanted to go into education. So we totally changed her content. We totally changed the look of her resume. We changed the LinkedIn profile, and all of it was telling the story. Same woman, but telling the story that she was now an educator. And again, the story matters. A few things that you don't want to put on your LinkedIn. The most obvious thing I see with clients is unprofessional photos. And for job seekers sometimes put their resume on there. We don't suggest you put your resume on there, because your resume the hiring team will actually think they know who you are and they won't reach out for you. For job seekers, it's your unprofessional photo, and usually it's friends, family, pets, trees, Christmas trees, plants, whatever. You want to have a professional photo similar to what I showed you on the information about Sally. So again, job seekers, you have to watch out for this. You don't want this on your resume. Business leaders, you want to make sure you don't go into jargon or buzzwords and inconsistent branding. And a call to action, usually there is, I find with clients, there is no call to action or no clear call to action. So you want to make sure these things are not on your resume. Maximizing your experience section on LinkedIn. You can best to use the default titles that LinkedIn uses. A lot of companies have their own inside roles or titles, and that doesn't help when the hiring team is searching for you. So you want to put a generic title on, like a project manager, but if your company calls project manager 3 other titles, that isn't easy for the people that are doing the search. So the title should use the default. For your role summary, we don't put down, a lot of people will put down in the experience section. I see a lot of people put down their entitled role responsibility on in every role they had. And it's just time consuming and clutter. And the hiring team and the viewer isn't going to read all that because LinkedIn is a bit of a snapshot. So for your role summary, just a short role summary, a small the scope of work for each role, and no responsibilities, no accomplishments. Just keep it simple for the LinkedIn profile. One of the things that's important here is limiting your skills to 10 or 12 skills per role. I've worked with several clients where they had 30 plus skills on each role. It doesn't look very well, but it also overshadows the scope of work. LinkedIn's job search power. I won't talk about all of this today, but I will mention these two that are highlighted. Most of the time, whether you do your rebranding yourself or you hire a professional for rebranding, your profile optimization includes a banner, your headline, the about section, and your experience. And then there's a few other things, but that's the main thing you want to rebrand, especially if you're pivoting in your career. The open to work frame, we are pretty much 50-50 in the industry, on the fence about that. Most of us were saying the open to work banner, that frame around, that green frame around your photo. Most of us have said it does work for you, and some people say it doesn't work for you. I am on the side that says it can really work for you. LinkedIn has promised that the people you work with, if you are currently working, they can't see that. Of course, if you're unemployed and you're job searching, then of course you can obviously have it. It doesn't matter. But meanwhile, it will tell your community that you're open to work. And you can't imagine how many people through their community have gotten interviews. So those are the two that are the most important for mentioning today. LinkedIn is very important. And as I mentioned earlier, your LinkedIn is so important that I won't do a job seeking client. I won't provide services unless they also include LinkedIn. But then the other piece, or the other half of the coin, is your LinkedIn is not your resume. It is separate from your resume. It's different from your resume. It's your digital footprint. It's everything that your resume can't say. And I say that about your personality. I'm having a little bit of a moment here. A lot of people come to me and they come before they're looking for work, but a lot of people come to me as well when they're already in the job search. And I've talked to career coaches and other people and colleagues in the career services. And we've kind of discovered that if you don't have help from a group like PRG or a professional that does resumes and LinkedIn profiles, if you try to do it yourself, then usually what happens is it takes from 4 to 9 months or longer. And that's costing $1,900 for every 100,000 of your salary. So when you do go forward and you get professional help, again, with PRG and with professionals to do your marketing documents, the power here is, I believe I delivered a resume for Caitlin on Friday before Thanksgiving a couple years ago. She put it on a job board at 6 o'clock that evening, and 4th of July was on Monday, and on Tuesday she had two interviews and 2 job offers. And that wasn't all on me or all on a professional doing her work. We collaborated. I did my part. She did her part. And it made her job search journey so short, probably the shortest. Most clients, it's anywhere from 3 weeks to a couple of months, but it's not as long as 4 to 9 months. So it's just a hint to count the costs and make sure that you're paying attention to your job search. Here's an example of someone who came to me and he brought me his resume. It pretty much looked like a cover letter. Didn't have any strong information, didn't have any role responsibilities. Again, he'd been in the industry for over 20 years, and he didn't even know what to say. So fortunately for him, he had left his previous job in February, and he came to me in, I believe it was May or June, and his job was still posted. They hadn't filled it. So I got most of my information there. And then if you look at the after resume, the format, the design, a little bit of color, and even I put in a quote that he was recognized that he was the guy who was so authentic and for treating clients like regular guys, that all of his clients, actually his clients that he worked with, he was an LADC, a licensed alcohol and drug counselor. His clients and the family members so appreciated him. But again, the difference of the look and the content here and the look and the content here was incredible. And within about 2 months, he actually got several job interviews and an offer. Here's a winning resume. Again, several hundred people submitted resumes to a contest with one of our associations back last December. I was humbled to be one of the winners. There were 12 winners. And out of the 12 winners, I was selected my work was selected as the overall winner. And it was selected for the overall winner for the design and the content. And this design is a little more involved than many designs, because most of the work, my colleagues and I, we make the resumes easy enough so you can go in and make the changes yourself. But for some people, they wanted something a little more intricate or a little more design quality. So we have some more elevated designs. A little bit of a wrap up on the LinkedIn and resume. Bottom line here, your LinkedIn is your personality and your history, and your resume is your history, only your history, but it's your history targeting your target role. And then we have lots of clients that come to us. The reason why we want to talk about this for a minute, I've had a lot of clients come to me, and so have my colleagues, where the clients are being proactive and thinking ahead that in the next few months they're going to be job searching, or in the next few months there's going to be downsizing. So they want to have their career documents ready. But I've also had people come to me and they need it next week. And next week is possible, but I'll give the example of one client. And I started working with her on Tuesday afternoon. And on Wednesday, she said she had an interview on Friday morning. So that doesn't give her and I enough time to do our work. So it's better if you're proactive and you have your career documents ready. Also, several clients have reached out and said that they have recruiters seek them out, or recruiters look for them. So when recruiters are looking for you and you're not expecting to, you're not actively looking, job searching, if you have your career documents ready, all you have to do is do some small updates. So it's really better to be proactive about that. And everybody knows our friends from Star Trek. And the bottom line here is storytelling, 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 storytelling. And it's not just with words, it's with pictures as well. And LeVar Burton has suggested we've all become storytellers. And I can't say that I emphasize that enough, whether it's your work that you're doing or the work that you're going to be doing, you're going to tell the story targeting your target role. And if you have any questions or you need anything in the future, just feel free to reach out to me. And QR code here. But John does an excellent job. You'll be getting the video tomorrow. and you'll be getting a handout and some notes, but I will open it up to John or Christy for any questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Rochelle. And there's a lot of great pearls in here. I don't know that I'm seeing any questions yet in the site, but a couple things that as you were talking, you mentioned the about section and how important that is. Can you expand on that a little bit? So much of the time, people are they put their about section in, but it doesn't necessarily, it could be just all keywords, it can be just a huge paragraph. What's your recommendation on, what needs to be included in the about section?
So that's actually a very good question here for discussion. So a lot of people they'll put 2 or 3 sentences, and it'll be very generic about their career. And what you actually want to do is you want to have, similar to the slide, similar to Bill, where we told a story and they got to meet Bill. First they met Bill, then they found out how Bill got into the line of work, what interests Bill, and then from there, some career details. But the other thing is, and let me share a screen for a second. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. So I'll just show my profile for a second.
Okay, you're showing a message. I'm going to click on that. Just go ahead and talk to us about it
Sure,
because
that's
yeah.
fine. That's fine. Okay, so on my about section, it's the same as I showed for Bill's, and what I've got is some introduction of who I am, who I work with, what kind of projects I've worked on, what career services I offer. But a lot of times people just have simple text, and I have some tools that I'll share this afternoon. I'll send it to John. I have some tools where you could bold your text, you can put some bullet points, you can add some color, you can add some style, so it's not just a narrative. A lot of
Okay,
times,
so I'm showing your about section, and I think this is what you're referring to.
yes,
So
yes,
I how it's laid out,
yes,
and it's very easy to read. So what I've always told people is you've got to chunk things up so it's visually appealing, it's easy to follow, and I think this is excellent. And I like how you put all of the necessary information. I do like how you put those, blue arrows in there. It does make it easy, but it does show some personality as well.
yes. And again, thank you so much for pulling that up. So for the clients that are seeking jobs or consultant work, it's going to look a little bit different, but it's going to have some design to it, some personality to it, and it's not just a narrative. But most of the time, clients have something that's so short you can't see who they are, and they're not selling themselves. This is your prime real estate where you get to sell yourself and tell your
Right.
story.
So
So
really the key things are the headline. What's that section underneath your name? Is that the headlines?
that's your headline.
Okay, the headlines and the about section. Those are the really two key things. And I agree wholeheartedly with that. We've got a question from Melissa, and she also put it in there, but Melissa, you want to quickly take yourself off mute and then ask your question?
Sure, thank you. Hi, Rochelle. My question is regarding gaps in our resume and if we should go ahead and format it chronologically, or if there's a different way to set up our resume to, even if we can explain away the gaps, just how would we capture that in the resume?
That's a really good question. And years ago, years ago, gaps were not acceptable. Today, because of COVID and because of remote working and because of a lot of people have chosen not to go back to an employee situation. They do contract work. So gaps are certainly okay today. And if the gap is 3 to 6 months, I would say do not add the gap in there because a lot of times a job search could take 2, 3, 4 months or more. So I don't typically put a gap in there. If the gap isn't needed, I don't put it in there.
Okay, thank you. Patricia.
Yes, I had a question. You mentioned earlier about a few years ago, having a client who then, landed within a few months or something like that. But I think the job market is actually very different today. So I'm just curious. And, interviewing processes at the same company can last, up to 4 months. So what are you seeing as far as what the climate is today as it relates to the interviewing process and how
Well,
long it takes?
yeah, that's a great question. And it really depends on the industry because I have a couple clients who are in change management and organizational development. And that industry is the 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 hiring process in that industry or that industry, those two industries, they're not hiring as much right now. It's kind of like if you're in that industry, you should be pivoting. But in some of the other industries, there's no shortage of hiring people. So it is really more about it's more about it's more about you and your strategy. A lot of people are still using the old school of looking for a job. They're waiting for a job to be posted. And as we heard our speaker last week, it's not about waiting for a job to be posted. It's about proactively networking so that you can get an interview and you can get to know people. And there's several ways to do your networking. But networking is the absolute most important thing at this point. You have to, you don't wait for a job to be posted. And a lot of times jobs may not be posted. So you have to go look for the jobs. And even though the climate says it's kind of tight and they're not hiring, I've had clients that got hired over Christmas vacation when people say, oh, you can never get a job over Christmas vacation. It really is.
There's no sweeping statements that
Yeah.
really apply in all cases. And we know that. And one of the things you said, and I wanted to touch on, is be proactive. So, while we know being proactive is very beneficial, there's, much of the time that one thing leads to another and you're surprised by a big layoff. And, I spoke with somebody today that it came completely out of left field. Manu, you have a question.
Yes, thank you for the session. Two quick questions. One, you mentioned like listing your experiences on LinkedIn. Considering ageism, any recommendation how much back we should post or not post?
Oh, that's a great question because a lot of people want to tell me they want all of their history on LinkedIn and all of their history on their resume. And we don't do that anymore because it does age you. So we want you to go back 15 or 20 years. You do not need to go back beyond that. There's no reason to go on back beyond that. In fact, one hiring manager that I spoke with, he said he really only looks at the first page of your resume and the last 5 to 10 years of your work. So this is a case where less is more, and you don't want to put down everything but the kitchen sink. It will trap you into going somewhere and not getting interviews. Good question, and take in mind, do not put everything, do not go back too far.
And second quick question about
Sure.
section. In the about section, as you said, like show your personality, but there is another school of thought that says like put your keywords, because after your headline, the next portion to highlight your keyword is in your about section. So any experience based on that, one way or another, what can we do? How to combine?
I don't know that I've talked to a couple of my colleagues about that, and I don't know, we don't really agree with that thought, because the about section is your personality and some of your achievements. Your skills are going to be in your skills in each role. And maybe this wasn't this way a few years ago, but in the last few years, LinkedIn opened up those skills. So when the hiring team's looking for you, they're looking for the skills and they're going to see them in your experience section.
Yeah.
So your about section is more your personality and a little overview of your career, but not necessarily those keywords. Those keywords should be in the experience section.
In the skills, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a couple more questions, so we're going to go through this kind of quickly. Roger asks, how best to show multiple periods of multiple private consulting work?
Well, there's two different schools of thought on that, and both of them can be done well. One of them is to do everything chronologically and have it all mixed together, and another one is to have the actual employment or contract, have the employment and contract work all individually separated out. Or if somebody, I've had some people that just worked on projects and consulting and they wanted their projects to show. So we had their roles and their experience that was W-2 or contract work in one and projects in another. The question, the way to answer the question is it depends, but it also makes sense. You want to make it simple and not confusing. If it's confusing to the resume writer and the LinkedIn profile specialist, then it's going to be confusing to the hiring team and the recruiters. So we need to keep it simple.
Okay.
And either way can work, but it needs to be simple so they can fully understand your history.
Okay, we're probably only going to be able to do one more question. So Gallet asks, which I completely agree with this, and it's a big question. The beginning of your career reflected work with PwC, and it's important to include that. But that was early on. So here's what we see a lot of times is that somebody worked for very impressive companies. So people in finance and accounting, they have Big Four or formerly
Yes.
Big Eight. And you want to show that because that is like the number one thing for a finance executive. If they have Big Four experience, you want to, put that on, especially if they spent, several years there. And so but that would extend beyond, the time frame that you would typically. How do you address that, Roshael?
So that's actually a good question, and I get that a lot from people who are high up on the food chain and who make a lot of money. So we put the 10 or 15 years, and in the 10 or 15 years on page, most resumes are 2 pages, some resumes are 3 pages, but for somebody with a long career and the Honeywell, the link, name the big brand companies and finance and other industries. So that would be early career. So the typical resume has a role, the company, the role summary, and the accomplishments. And you have that 3 to 5 accomplishments for each role. But when it's 20 plus years or 15 plus years ago, it's another section. It's not in your professional experience. Another section that I call early career or something similar, early career, and you don't have it doesn't look like the role summary and the accomplishments. It's just a 2 to 3 or 4 sentences, And it's just the scope of work and the role summary that you did there in early career. So it's still on your resume, but it's not this much information because you don't,
Right.
20 years ago, you don't have all the details anymore. 20 years ago, you want to know the big footprint of what you did 20 years ago. So yes, you do want to put those things on. I'm glad.
Okay, good, because that's what we suggest as well. Okay, Roshael, we are out of time. John's going to cue up the music. And thank you so much. We could probably have, several of these sessions and get people's questions answered. But at the end of the day, we want them to contact you for additional questions and for any assistance. And Roshael, you have been so incredibly generous with your time and your wisdom. Thank you so much. And we hope that you'll come back. Will you? We're putting you on the spot here.
Yes.
Okay. And you're a great resource for people. So hopefully you'll get lots of people reaching out to you. And I love what you've done. Your work, what I've seen is high quality presentation material, and you've done a great job. And thank you so much for your time and talents used here. So thank you. It's great to see you all. We'll see you not next week, but I think the following week, 2 weeks.
Next week with Katarina.
Katarina, that's right. Katarina's going to be talking about taxes and using her superpower to help everyone with end of year planning for taxes. Roshael, thank you. It's great to see everyone. Stay safe, stay warm, get in the holiday spirit, and